Coding is really the canonical long-running workload, if you think about it. Real software usually isn't just built with a single prompt. It's usually a chain of dependent problems, and each of them can fail in ways which the prompt maybe didn't necessarily anticipate, right? So chatbot-style coding can end up failing the first time something really breaks, and it can give up as soon as you run into something really, really complicated. And you don't want it to just hallucinate a fix. You want it to be able to self-correct, move on, continue working until it's able to accomplish your goal, right? For my first demo of long-running agents coding, I gave a coding agent, I gave Claude Code. I'm a big fan of lots of different coding agents, but I also like Claude Code. I gave it a single spec and one instruction. I was able to use their goal primitive for this. So it was able to keep working turn after turn until the goal was met. And it was able to build a simple operating system for me. Because I'm completely egotistical, I've called it Addy OS. I'm sure there's a better name for it. But it's going to have a window manager, an IndexedDB file system, a terminal, a file explorer, and a few other bits and pieces. So I just want to show you this in action. So let's see. So I want to show you this in action. And the first thing we've got here is our terminal. So I expect to be able to do a few things in this terminal. I expect to be able to open up files. Here you can see that my simple operating system was able to open up this text editor, right? And I'm able to, continue typing in here. I can say whatever I want. I can create new documents. I can save documents. And you'll see that it even has a path. It's counting characters and stuff like this. This is very simple stuff, right? We can see that, if I wanted to make these larger or smaller, my small operating system also supports that. And we've, of course, got a file browser in here. I don't have a lot of files right now, but I'm able to go and open files up as well, which is kind of neat. Of course, an operating system wouldn't be complete without some way to, draw. And so I just wanted to be able to do this as well. So we've got a functional, paint application in here as well that's got a lot of other features in it. One small thing, we mentioned at I/O, we were talking at Google I/O, we talked about how anti-gravity was being used to build an operating system. And as we know, an operating system can't be complete if you can't run something like Doom on it. And so my little operating system also has its own version of Doom. So I can walk around this whole environment. I can go and I can, I'm not very good at this, but I've got a whole game here that is working, which is kind of neat. And you can take this as far as you want. Again, this was something that was running for hours and hours, generating a lot of code. Now, this operating system wouldn't be complete if it didn't have a way to play music. I'm a big music fan, and so I wanted it to also be able to do this. Let's see if this works. Oh, that's pretty. I remember when I was growing up, we had operating systems that had these beautiful like music visualizers, and so I'm so stoked that this works. We can also try it out with other tracks and see if we get like slightly different effects here. Oh, that's trippy. Very, very cool. So that's really my first example of a long-running agent that's able to generate something that's non-trivial with a lot of code and a level of complexity around it. Now, if you're not convinced, I wanted to show you something even more complex. So for our last demo, I want to show you something really cool. I am not a game designer or a game developer. I'm not an expert at Blender, but I love the idea of being able to take ideas and bring them to life through agents. And so there's a use case that I had in mind that I think long-running agents really handle well. And it's being able to build a complex 3D scene that you can walk around. I remember when I was growing up, I was a big fan of video stores. The ones where you'd go in and you'd be able to rent a VHS tape or a DVD. Maybe some folks, out there remember those. Now, I wanted to recreate that experience in a way where I could walk around one of those stores and feel that nostalgia. Now, this is a really complicated task because even if I start out with a building, a building that maybe, I pulled off the internet with a 3D asset, there's still a lot of detail inside of the store that I need to handle. I need to build out. I need to get these assets all in the right places. You need to handle things like lighting. You need to make sure that if you want all of this to work in the browser so you can walk around it, your assets are properly optimized. And if you're doing a lot of compression, that things still look good, that you're not corrupting any of the files that are being loaded up, and that everything is loading up in an efficient way too. So there are a lot of challenges around this that I want to talk you through. The first one is that my project here started off with a very, very large Blender file. I had something I was able to pull off the web as a starting point. It was a simple starting point, but still a starting point. And that starting point was 156 megs in size. It was huge. Now, when you have something this big, right, it requires you to rethink how you're approaching the project entirely, because really you don't want to load more than like 5 or 10 megs in the browser. You don't want to keep a person waiting around for a very long amount of time, right? And so this is something where I thought there would be a lot of work, right? This is what our 3D scene ended up looking like in Blender. Again, I'm not an expert, but I can use my agent to continue working on the scene, building out the scene, building out the shelves, building out the tapes, building out everything else that I need in order to make the scene feel complete. But even then, we can run into challenges, right? Because 156 megs, that's going to include your geometry, your textures, your materials. And so if you want to make it browsable, you need to do a lot of optimization. So before I show you this, I want to talk through the problems really quickly. The agent had to solve a chain of hard technical problems, and it couldn't skip any of them. First was our export pipeline, right? Again, I'm not a Blender expert. I wanted this to work in the browser. It had to figure out how to do that, how to handle Blender's Draco quantization without corrupting our geometry on different meshes with different transforms that were being used. So the agent decided to write some Python scripts to fix that. The second was optimization. It built out a pipeline that could handle these GLTF files. If you've worked with 3D, you know what GLTF is. But basically, think of like a file, an asset, as potentially being in a GLTF format. And it had to handle compressing that giant file and all of the other files that made up this scene into something that could, be loaded, be lazy loaded fairly quickly. And it had to make sure that as we were doing texture resizing, image compression, image conversion, all of this still looked pretty good. And the third thing it had to do was handle lighting. So Blender area lights could be exported with extreme intensities, and they didn't necessarily by default look good in the browser. There's a particular look and feel that, a video store used to have, and I wanted that to feel pretty faithful. And so the agent was able to keep working through a lot of these problems. It was able to make sure that our material colors were correct, our mixed shaders were right, that this faithfully reproduced the kind of look and feel of the original scene that we wanted to show you. And so I'm going to actually bring this up and you can take a look and see what you think. So here is our scene. And I'm going to go and I'm going to walk in to our classic video store. You'll see there's a lot of detail here, right? You can see that over here, I've got the mat, I've got the central desk experience where I could go and I could, hand in the videos that I want to either return or pick up. You can see that we have a lot of extra detail here that I'd included in my spec. Things like, I'd kind of love some cardboard cutout posters that we could have around the store. There was a mascot that the store also used to have. You can see T-shirts, you can see chocolate bars over here. We can go and we can look at the videotapes that are on these different sort of shelves. It looks a lot like, a classic video store. We've also got like a little area over here where people can go and they can sit down. We move around our scene and let's see what else we've got. We've got some other pieces. We've got what looks like, let's see, let me move around here. We've got more swag. We've got a Back to the Future display here. A lot of these things are things that were in my original spec. We've got Indiana Jones. We've got some horror icons here as well. But this is all very, very cool. And once again, I am not a Blender expert. I'm not, necessarily a person that would have been able to build out a scene as complex as this and have it just work in the browser without it taking a long time to load. And so I thought this was very cool. I thought that, agents being able to churn at this for hours and hours and hours. And in the end, it ended up taking, more than a day. I believe it was 2 or 3 days in the end for it to fully get everything done. But this ends up looking really, really cool.